Oh, that photo is so ugly. Need a new one for sure. Bit of lippy, not too much makeup, don't want to look too slutty. Ready for the photos.
If there's a place to be shallow, this is it. Facebook is now the #1 search term on the internet. Even away from the screens, many of us are obsessing about our online social life, editing our real-life experiences into something that resembles a brochure of the good life.
It's as though identity now is externally created, not generated from within. It's derived from how many hits you've got, it's how quickly you can report on what you're doing, how many people are impressed by what you're doing.
Ew. Oh my god, you are a stunner.
That's the worst shot, you look so fat.
It's not just Facebook. There's Twitter, Vimeo, blogs, MySpace, YouTube, a plethora of sites, all geared towards broadcasting yourself, right down to the most intimate detail.
So today we are going to talk about my Louis Vuitton bag. I'm wearing this bright pink lipstick. I don't know if it does look nice on me or not.
A lot of people might not think that I deserve as much as I have.
It's the morning and I'm just gonna have breakfast, so I decided to actually do a video of my favorite breakfast.
According to research by Professor Jean Twenge, all this self-focus is fueling a disturbing trend in human behaviour.
We have rising plastic surgery rates. We have this obsession with fame and celebrity. We have more materialistic values than we used to.
American youth are in the grip of what Twenge describes as a narcissism epidemic.
We did several within-campus studies to try to find out what the generational change was in narcissism. All told, about 50,000 college students who filled out the Narcissistic Personality Inventory at some point between 1982 and 2009.
The Narcissism Personality Inventory is a commonly used measure of narcissistic traits in individuals.
And we found that the number who scored very high on narcissism, that percentage used to be only about 17%, and in the most recent samples it was about 30%. Just the average change is just as large as the increase in obesity that people call the obesity epidemic.
Narcissism is a bit like blood pressure. If you've got too much, it's a problem. If you have too little, it's a problem. And the most excessive form, someone who would have a narcissistic personality disorder would be somebody who has little or no empathy for people around them, is quite conceited, arrogant, haughty, feels that their needs are more important than others. They're quite grandiose, tend to fantasize about things like that, and nothing's ever quite good enough. Although what a lot of people would refer to, I suppose, in a lay sense of narcissism is probably better described as vanity.
Even if it's just at the personality trait level and not at that clinical level disorder, there's a number of problems with it. So first, narcissism is just toxic to relationships with others. People who score high on narcissism often get nominated to be the leader, but they can't take the other person's perspective, and it's all about them, they're selfish, they're not good team players in the long run. They have this overconfidence. It's not just confidence, it's overconfidence.
In other words, narcissists love success, but their personality sets them up for failure. It's been shown that people with more friends on Facebook score higher on narcissistic traits than those with less friends. But can you really blame social networking for the rise in narcissism?
The increase in narcissism seemed to be accelerating after about 2005 or 2006, which is exactly when a lot of this internet technology and social networking websites and so on really got going.
It does cultivate narcissism, this notion that everyone is interested in what you're doing, however banal, every minute of the day. Reminds me of a little child, look at me, mummy, I'm putting on one sock, look at me, I'm putting on the other sock, because if you don't look at me, how do I know I exist?
Well, I think it can bring out some ill-savoury traits that we all possess to some degree. Whether or not you can say that tweeting what you had for lunch will cause you to become a malignant narcissist is a bit of a stretch.
Jean Twenge attributes the narcissism epidemic to 4 combined causes: the internet, easy credit, celebrity-soaked media, and permissive parenting.
There's been a shift away from the child seeking the parent's approval to the parent seeking the child's approval. And that really puts the kid at the center of things. We treat our kids as royalty, and we ask them what they want all the time and so on. But if you're hanging on to that idea of the whole world revolves around me for longer, that's not a great strategy for succeeding in your 20s and into your 30s.
Well, I think it's important to distinguish between self-esteem and self-respect. Self-respect is to value yourself, to make the most of the gifts that you have in life. And I think that's a fairly solitary experience. Whereas self-esteem is very much living one's life through other people's eyes, what some sociologists would call other regarding. If we become addicted to the esteem of others for our own well-being, then yes, that is essentially the essence of narcissism.
Professor Joanna Wynne has been leading a long-term Australian study of Gen X and Gen Y. Although not directly measuring narcissistic traits, the Life Patterns Project has revealed a contrasting picture of Australian youth.
Do you have any sense where you might be with your life in 10 years' time?
I'd like to be an expert in climate change and energy efficiency, which is something I've taken a great interest to.
We don't see evidence that they're greedy or self-centred or selfish. Quite to the contrary, we see them as being quite ethical. They are also realistic in the sense that no one much else is looking out for them. And so it does come down to you. I don't see that as narcissistic. Actually, I see it as a need to be very aware, to be acutely aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it and who you are.
I enjoy doing this, and I've been told by a lot of, mentors, do something you love. I really love problem solving and finding solutions to, people's problems. I've got a drive for success and very extremely outcome focused.
And I'd say they're not more individualistic because we're seeing rates of volunteering go up. We've seen the most educated generation ever. They know that they need to have multiple options open all the time. One of the effects of the technology is that it speeds things up. It enables them to live a faster pace.
I'm not really motivated by fame. It's more, for me, I guess it's happiness. I mean, everybody wants happiness.
I guess the digital communication amplifies both good and bad. It amplifies opportunities for abuse of relationships and abuse of information, and it also amplifies opportunities to connect in positive ways.
Posting about exactly what you're doing and those material type values that you may have, you grow out of that sort of sense, and it just becomes a form of just keeping in touch.
It is quite narcissistic in a way. I think it's something that unfortunately nowadays we can't live without. I think if you disconnect from social networking, you really disconnect from millions of people.
Whether or not social networking can create narcissists, there's no doubt it's an arena that can provide the attention they crave. But narcissistic tendencies and rapid-fire communication is a volatile mix.
People are anonymous and they have the chance just to be very cruel to each other, and they tend to take that chance. And that's also a typical behavior for someone who's narcissistic, to just lash out at people that they don't like and insult them.
There was a study by Michigan State University of 1,400 students showing over the last 30 years a decline in empathy, particularly marked in the last 10. Now this coincides, of course, with the rise of the so-called digital native.
It's an unregulated environment. It's the Wild West. And what is concerning to me is that people invest real emotion, in a sense almost hyper-real emotion. It's quite hard to be nasty or horrible to someone when they're there. It's much easier to kind of push a button than it is to actually say it face to face.
An important consequence of being nasty to other people is that you lose your reputation. And internet and social media are much stronger and much more dynamic environments for developing and losing reputation.
We've all seen the consequences of a compromising post in cyberspace. They can be bigger, faster, and longer lasting than an offline mistake. The web never forgets. But sometimes, just occasionally, it forgives. Whichever way you look at it, there's nothing inherently good or evil about digital technology. Like medication or the cars we drive, it's the way we choose to use it that will either benefit or harm us.